Hi everybody, welcome to yet another video and a rather cold UK. It's currently 2 degrees Celsius in the workshop at the moment. So what I've got today, I've got a TMEI and it's a T5500. Now this is the gun. The standard box comes with it. You get the normal thing, the spanner, the gun, which is here, which we'll go into in more detail in a minute, and you get some brushes and you get a cup as well. I'll explain to you about the cup in a minute. So let's talk about that while I remember. So this is the gun. Now it's called a T5500, and those that are quite observant and know their guns will realise that it's actually a copy of a Sata 5500. Now I have had this out the box and I have done a few experiments with swapping different parts over so that I can give you the information straight away rather than mumbling through it, even though I may be mumbling to some anyway. But what I want to do is just show you what is interchangeable, and then we'll do one of our spray outs and we'll see what sort of pattern this produces. Now why I mentioned the cup is that if you see here, it's difficult to see really, it's just a standard thread. I say standard thread, it's a standard thread that's found on most Chinese spray guns these days, which is M16 by 1.5. so the same as the Porfish guns, and quite a few different Chinese guns have this same thread. Some have a M16 by 2, but most of them have an M16 by 1.5. So the PPS adapter is a number 9, which is the M16 by 1.5. There is another one as well. I can't remember what it is. I think it's 37 or 39, but it's not quite got the depth. And some of the sealing rings for these are quite low, so that if you got too short of an adapter, when you screw it in, it doesn't seal around the bottom of the ring because it hasn't got the extra length that the S9 has. So an S9 adapter anyway is the one you want, whereas obviously people that know their Satas will know that it has their own quick fitting basically. So as I said, I've had this out the box already and had a look at it, and the answer to what's interchangeable is all of it. It is an exact copy. Everything I've tried to swap, from the spring to the fluid adjuster to the fluid needle, it's including the length, the size of the shoulder, the diameter, has all been the same as the Sata, and that includes the tip. Now there's something to say about the tip, in that with this gun you get what they call a 1.30, and the people that know Satas will know you normally get well, recently anyway, on the X5500, and I think on the new Jet X, well I know on the new Jet X, you get an I or an O pattern. So one is a shorter pattern, more centre weighted. The other one is a bit more of a longer pattern, a bit more like of an Iwata type pattern. Well, Iwata make squat patterns as well, but yeah, it just one is like an I and one is obviously like an O, although there's not a great deal of difference on the Sata. I did do a video which has been quite well watched actually, showing you the difference between the two, and it's not a great deal. So I'll try and remember to put a link in the video. If I forget, just mention it and I can add it afterwards, but I'll try and remember to put a link if you want to see the difference. But what they're suggesting we have here is that way even is a T5500 RP 1.30, and the cap says, the tip says exactly the same, but what we actually have is effectively a 1.250, because I've measured it with my used to be precision tool. It's quite a precise tool, and it just goes into the depth, and then you can just mark it or hold it, whatever you want to do, and then just put your verniers on it and it gives you an idea. But the easiest way with these is to insert it up to a certain level, hold your finger on it like that, and that gives you the depth. And then you can put another tip, for example this one, which is a genuine Sata, it's HVLP actually, but a genuine Sata 1.3 tip, and then you can put that in, and if it travels further up than the other tip, then it's a larger size, and then you can measure it afterwards if you want to. And the answer is it actually pushes your nail along slightly, so it's actually not a 1.3 O pattern. Well, it might be an O pattern, but it's not a 1.3. It's actually the equivalent to a 1.2, which is 1.25 anyway, because all the Satas seem to be about half a millimetre oversized. But as far as actually interchanging goes, everything, I mean, it's a few days since I did it, but as far as I remember, everything interchanges. I couldn't think of anything that doesn't interchange. That's the original Sata cap, which goes on nicely. I've put fluid through this. I haven't actually sprayed with it yet, but I've put fluid through it with the Sata tip in it and the Sata needle and the Sata cap, just to make sure I wasn't getting any leaks via the cap or bubbling back into the pot, which would suggest that the ring isn't sealing. And it all works perfectly. So this is a genuine Sata tip, and this is the copy gun. You can screw that in and it actually seats properly. It feels no different to the original, so it's a proper copy. Now, you know, the whys and woefuls of that, it's quite bad news really that they copy something so well, but I'm not here to judge. I'm just here to give you information that I've found and pass it on to you guys. Really, you can make a judge whether, if you don't think it's the thing to do, then you don't buy one. It's as simple as that. I did buy one because I was quite intrigued. The only difference I can find, and it could well make a difference, let's just get this one off here. I'm going to get my needles mixed up. Genuine Sata needle, copy needle, but as you can see, well, hopefully you can see, it is exactly the same. Same chamfer on the tips, same diameter. I've measured the diameter of these, although that actually looks bigger, but it's not. I have measured the diameter of them. Let me get my verniers and just check that. God, I think you'd have somewhere easy to get your verniers, wouldn't you? Let's check. So what one we got here? This one is the genuine Sata one. So that is, what is that? 1, 2, 3.4. And see if that just fits in snugly. No, not quite. Let's open it up. Try 3.4. Yeah, exactly the same. Exactly the same diameter. The length is exactly the same. The chamfer for the needle is exactly the same. Shoulder size is exactly the same. Shoulder length is exactly the same. It's exactly the same. It's a direct copy. Now, as far as the cap goes, the cap looks like a pretty good copy as well. This is the original Sata one, as you can see. Let's turn both these the right way up. As you can see, or hopefully you can see, it keeps trying to focus on my eyes. The size of the holes is actually the same. It doesn't look the same because one is closer to the lens of the camera. But if you can see, the one that's closest to the camera looks bigger, but it's only because it's closer to the camera. So this is a 1.2, which is what I was saying, is the same as the 1.3 because the tip is exactly the same, but the cap is the same anyway on the 1.2 and the 1.3. But you can see even the chamfer, hopefully you can see the chamfer here, just here on this edge here. If you can see, it's not straight down. Hopefully you can see that the chamfer, this bit here, is exactly the same on both of them. It's difficult because you've got to see the camera, and then the camera wants to focus on your eyes all the time. Hopefully you can see it there. They're both exactly the same. And the inside of the caps are the same. everything is the same. So it is fully interchangeable. So in theory, I know the place I bought this from, and I'll put a link in the description. They sell the tip and needle separately, and they also sell a cap separately. So if you've damaged your cap, you could try one of these if you want to, or you can obviously pay the price that Sata want for their setup if you want to keep it pucker, as we would say. But yeah, otherwise it's absolutely it feels the same. Weight is more or less the same. This is a digital version. I haven't got a non-digital version, so I can't actually tell you whether it's the same or not as a non-digital version. But certainly in the hand, this is slightly heavier. This feels slightly heavier, and also the cap actually feels a bit lighter, and that's because I think you'll find that the center of the cap here is brass, like a plated brass, but the outside of the cap is going to be anodized aluminium, whereas with the Sata the whole thing is brass. The cap is brass, although it's plated. The cap is brass as well, so the cap feels heavier than this one, but this gun actually feels a little bit heavier than this. So when you make the two together, they feel about the same in the hands. Anyway, what I'm going to do is we'll put these together and we just see whether it gives us the same pattern. So I'll compare the 1.3 or the so-called 1.3 against the 1.2, because in my mind they are both 1.2, and we'll see what sort of pattern we get and see if they're actually, you know, copying the pattern, and then I'll bring you a proper review of this gun when I get some time and when the weather gets a bit warmer. And before I forget, I'm just editing this clip in because I forgot to do it, and I think I should do it really to show you. The only difference I can find between these is if you have a look, the actual holes in the Sata, the exit holes, so that's where the air comes through the body and comes into the cap. You can see they're actually closer together. You see the two holes here? They're closer together, whereas these have got a little bit more of a gap. Although the diameter looks exactly the same. I've stuck my hole prodder in there and the diameter looks exactly the same. Certainly looking through here into the fluid tract and that, I can't see any difference at all. They all look exactly the same. As I've said before, the diameter of the needle is exactly the same, so I expect the seals to be, you know, more or less compatible. I haven't taken them out, but certainly, yeah. The only thing you can see is you've got, obviously this has got a higher head on it here, and that's simply because it takes a threaded cut rather than the Sata quick fit. But yeah, it's definitely not too bad, not too shabby a copy. It has actually got a fixed base here. You know, when you put your regulator on, it's actually fixed. I know Sata often put, I think you can get them without, but often put this, which I don't mind. I don't mind as long as it's reasonably tight. I don't mind one of those, but you know, I don't do big things, and I imagine if you're doing a big thing and you're moving around covering a big area, that your regulator spinning round would get quite annoying. But for what I do, it doesn't seem to really matter. So now on this, we are going to put the camera on the head, and we're going to see what sort of pattern these things can give us. Okay, so we've got the TMEI, the T5500RP. Now I'm going to set it to 2 bar, so 29 psi, which is what I would normally use a Sata at. The fluid in here it's basically 18 seconds for a Ford 4 cup. It's a mixture of high solids clear coat with some reducer and some green, as you can see, green tinter, and that's just to give it some tint, and it also means that it doesn't go off, so I'm not on a time limit to muck about with the guns, and then I can use the same material in both guns. That's the idea of it. That's why it's not got a proper hardener in it, but the actual viscosity will be the same as our most recommended viscosities for spraying high solids clear coat. If you look in the technical data sheet, most of them would be between 16 and 18 seconds in a Ford 4 cup. Obviously, the lower the figure, or the faster it goes through, the thinner the material. So we've got the fan set on full, I've got the fluid set on full, and I've got the onboard pressure set to full. Now with the Meiji gauge, a couple of things I need to mention actually while I remember is I said that this didn't have a swiveling connector. It actually has, it's just that it's very, very tight. When I tried to turn it by hand you can't, but now I've got some leverage you can actually turn it, although as I say it is actually quite tight. You can't turn it like that, but you can like that. So that isn't fixed. I try and remember to put a little exclamation underneath the start of the video, but if I don't, then just remember that does actually revolve. And the other thing I need to make clear, I'm trying to do 3 videos at once because it's really cold today, so I can't do much painting, but I'm trying to do the 3 videos at once and I'm getting some of the facts mixed up. But one of the things, or one of the other things I need to say besides this being revolving, is that the thread in this is actually the same as the N-Tools 4000B. It's an M16 by 2, not 1.5. So I've got a PPS adapter. The only way you can get a PPS adapter for these is from China. Just look up PPS and put in M16 2.0 and you should be able to find it, and that you can get them in PPS 1 and PPS 2. But anyway, so as long as you know that the thread is different to what I originally said, and this thing does revolve. So as I say, everything on full, and let's see what it can do. I'm setting it to 2 bar, so 29 psi, which is what I would normally use the gun at. We'll just do a couple here. I use this to give us a distance, which is 7 inches, so 175 mil. Even pattern, and then we just do a rolling one here. That's just going to be the little bits of dark green. It's just going to be where I haven't mixed the tinter up completely, but it certainly looks an even pattern. Let's do a sideways pattern now. Bear with me if it starts to flutter because it's a gravity fed gun and I'm going to do it sideways. I don't like turning the caps, and the reason I don't like turning the caps is I'm not sure whether it actually gives you a true reading. It probably does, but I'm not sure, so I would prefer to do it a way that I know it is going to actually give you a proper reading. And we just wait for that to drop and see if it drops evenly. Yeah, you can see it's starting to drop evenly. So it's a good even distribution. If it was like too much at the top or the bottom, it would actually run at that area and that area only, but that's a nice sag. So center weighted pattern, as most patterns are, and it's nice and even. So we get that off, I'll put it down and we'll get the real one going and see see what it's like. So now we've got the Sata digital version. I'll set this to 2 bar. Again, all the controls fully open, fan open, fluid fully open. That we will adjust to get our 2 bar or 29 psi. Material in the cup is exactly the same as in the other one. 18 seconds for a Ford cup, and we'll use the Iwata spanner once again to give us our distance, which is 7 inches or 175 mil. Let's see what we get. And again. And we'll have a moving one. And we'll try one here. Again, don't be surprised if it runs out because it's relatively low in the cup, and obviously it's a gravity gun and we're doing it sideways. That's where a PPS cup would actually be better, which I might do. I've got PPS adapters and I've got cups, so I might use them in the future. But anyway, we'll try it here, see how we go. See what that's like. Yeah, that's nice and even distribution. I'll put that, we'll get this off, I'll put it next to each other, and we'll just run through what we find and see what we think the difference in the patterns are. Very even distribution there. Okay, so just take a quick closer look at the patterns. This is obviously the genuine gum. You can see this is the O pattern, so it tends to be more center concentrated. And looking at this one's very similar, very similar. Probably not quite as big a pattern overall. Let's get a tape out and we'll have a look, shall we? Here's a tape measure. So this one, I mean, the full length of the pattern is about 10 inches. Center wet pattern is about 6.5 inches. And this one, the full pattern is about 9.5, and the center wet part is about 5.5. So yeah, it's definitely a slightly smaller pattern on the TMEI gum. But yeah, I mean, it's a good pattern in that it's even. The distribution is even. You can see all this sagging is quite even, even more so with the Sata Jet. But bear in mind that I kept the trigger open longer because we had a smaller cup, so it enabled it to deliver the fluid better than the bigger cup with the amount of fluid that was in there anyway. Anyway, guys, once again, I hope you enjoyed the video. You keep watching them. Cheers. Bye bye.